My name is Alan Steinfeld, and my program is called New Realities. Each week I go deep into the understanding of how we can start to change the planet, how new ideas can be presented to the world to unfold a greater civilization.
When we go to a place like Chartres Cathedral, when we go to a place like Stonehenge or Avebury, these places are set on earth currents that have a telluric resonance.
An earth resonance.
An earth resonance.
There's a vibration in the land.
And the ancients built their sacred spaces on these spots.
How did they know those spots were resonance with what? What are we feeling in those places?
Well, my theory is that if we get away in ancient times when we didn't have electricity, when we could see the whole sky, the whole stars, we were walking more barefoot or with sandals that were closer to the earth. We felt the earth.
Right.
And we were in tune with the earth.
Oh,
and we knew, we heard. We were able to hear and listen because I believe that our survival really depended on this.
So there was
we
walking along in bare feet, and one part of the earth actually felt better.
Yes, that's the simplest way to say it.
And we felt like, hey, this little patch of land feels better than that little patch of land. And we'd also see if we walked along these lines, they would actually have a continuation of this feeling because we were sensitive enough to feel ourselves in connection to the earth.
Exactly.
I see. And that's how people started to discover these ley lines or these sacred lines.
That's my theory.
I think that's true.
That's just a very simple explanation that we're human and we do feel things and we are very sensitive. And if we are living in a time when we're not distracted by video games, by cell phones, by TVs, by electronics, and we're spending time outdoors, not indoors.
Right. So
then we felt these things.
The ancients were a lot more sophisticated than us.
I believe, yes.
So what is it, if you know, in the earth that's actually making us feel good at a certain spot? What's happening?
Most of these places on the earth, and I went to a lecture you did on crop circles
in
Avebury.
Yes.
In that place, there's a lot of water under the earth.
Okay.
There oftentimes is, in that place, there's a lot of chalk, but there's different kinds of earth. There's maybe granite.
Right.
So usually there are places where there is water and there's some sort of magnetism there.
Oh. So we're actually feeling a magnetic charge.
We are feeling some sort of magnetic charge in our body because we are electromagnetic beings as well.
But there's different levels of these magnetic lines. I mean, it's more than just one thing. Actually, there's places that don't feel good either.
Exactly.
And so we probably wouldn't build a temple there.
We probably haven't built temples on the places that didn't feel so good.
But they probably are good for something. Even though they don't feel good, they might be good for a certain condition.
They might be, yes.
And so getting back to the sacred places, so there's the places that actually resonated with like magnetic energy, and lots of times stones were put on those places.
Yes.
And the purpose of putting a stone there was to amplify it?
I believe it was to amplify it. A lot of these stones have a crystalline matrix to it. And what do we know about crystals? They're used in our computers to store memory. So memories were stored, vibrations were stored in these stones, and they were built on these lines that had this special charge to them. And then these places, we don't know exactly what happened in these places, but we do know that they are places of power that have been in reverence by many people over a long period of time.
Well, it's interesting. They exist all over the world.
All over the world.
Every ancient civilization had their sacred space.
Yes.
On a certain area.
Yes.
And a lot of the churches then, like Chartres Cathedral, and I think Montmartre in Paris, I feel really good in that Sacre-Cœur church up on the
Yes.
top. I mean, there's an energy there.
There is an energy there, and I believe those places then, when they became buildings, when they became cathedrals, when they became chapels, or when they became mosques, or became other things, when they enshrined the air.
Yeah. Was that part of enshrining the air, making the air a holy space?
I believe that. I believe that. Through my research and through singing in many of these places, it feels like that was one of the purpose, to enshrine the air and use the resonance. These places are some of the most resonant places on the earth.
Well, I was
Chartres
gonna
Cathedral.
ask you then the connection to sound. So they found the sacred spot. They built a sacred temple, and then the sound comes in that is that's amplified. How? What do you mean by resonance?
Well, it's amplified by the sacred geometry of the space and by the building materials that are there.
And by the space it's on.
And by the space it's on. So there's all these things working. There's the water under the earth. There's the resonance in the earth. There's the site that's built. Then there's usually a spiritual tradition, and most spiritual traditions work with sound and music. So they're doing their prayers, which are usually vocal.
And they open up a sacred resonance within our field,
us.
and then we make the sound. Is there a sacred sound? I guess some mantras are sacred sounds.
Mantras are sacred sound. Gregorian chant is a sacred sound.
What makes something a sacred sound? A harmonics to it?
Well, again, I mean, with intention, Row, Row, Row Your Boat is a very phenomenally spiritual song. Life is but a dream.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Life is but a dream.
Yeah.
But most sacred traditions are working a lot with vowels.
Oh.
Sacred languages are rich in vowels, and vowels are rich in harmonics.
So making a vowel. So the idea,
Sound.
okay, so we have the sacred spot, we have this sacred building, we have the sacred structure, we have the sacred sound. For what reason? I mean,
For what reason?
yeah,
That's
why
a very good
all
question.
I mean, I love the sacred part of it, but
Yes.
what are we supposed to do with it?
So we can tune in.
Yeah.
So we can tune in and remember that we are sacred beings as well. So that we can tune in, so that you can tune in.
Well, to remember that we're sacred beings, but also, I think, probably to bring the sacred through us.
To bring the sacred through us, to be a vehicle, to sound the sacred through this open channel. So my earlier work is opening the voice, opening the authentic voice. Why? Not just so I can sing or be interviewed, but because I can then resonate the sacred energy through the breath.
Right.
Out to the world,
And then
where
when
it's
we
needed.
bring in, and it's really beautiful the way you broke down, detailed the structure of this sacred action.
Yes.
And then there's like probably sacred movements and sacred interactions and it's all for the purpose of elevating our consciousness.
Elevating our consciousness.
So when we get in those places of sacredness that have been charged with that, our thoughts are probably different.
Our thoughts are different because then we have entrained with that space. Our thoughts are elevated. We can
Yeah.
also commune with the ancestors. If we're talking Paleolithic times, we're in caves doing the same
Right,
thing.
because the
to commune.
doorways between the dimensions open,
Exactly.
and our brain-mind consciousness is an interdimensional resonator of total consciousness. This is my
Yes.
theory. I don't know if science would say that, but I think you're right. When we get in that space, we can communicate with other realms.
We can communicate with other realms, and I believe that this was important for our survival as a species.
What do you mean? Yeah,
Well,
explain
why
that.
else? Since the earliest of time, we have been building painted caves. From there, we built chamber graves, stone circles,
Yeah.
temples. Why?
Why?
Because I believe that the sacred is intrinsic to who we are, and sometimes we forget that just as we forget our
But
voices.
wait, let's go there. Let's just stay with that for a little bit. The
Okay.
sacred is intrinsic. Now, how do you define the sacred when you say that? What do you mean by the sacred? I mean,
Well, if we look at all sacred architecture
yes,
is related to sacred geometry.
yes.
And we are also related. The proportions, we have the proportion of the golden mean
Of the
in
harmonics
every
in
part
us.
of our body. We have those harmonics in us.
Oh. So if the sacred, this harmonics, so we make these things to remind ourselves of our own divinity.
And to then commune, to have a relationship.
With this divine presence.
To have a relationship with this divine presence. And we need this relationship with this divine presence in order, I believe, to be fully alive.
That's good, Susan.
Thank you.
So we forgot, because in this world, this material world, we don't have any connection to what's sacred. Even if you go to a synagogue or a church, it's just a duty. It's just something you think you have to do. There's no connection to the sacred.
Yes.
So by reminding ourselves that we're in a sacred place, making sacred sounds on sacred land, and that there's a doorway of consciousness that can open, we connect back into our eternal being.
Exactly.
And that is important for our survival.
And that is important for our survival. And to remember that internal being is a human being. We are human beings.
But why is it important to our survival if this culture has so much ignored that? It's totally ignored that.
It has totally ignored that. And look at where we are today.
Well, we've survived, though.
We have.
But maybe that sacred part is not about survival. It's about going beyond survival.
I believe it's a little bit of both.
And giving meaning to our lives, because if you're just surviving, you don't have time to access the meaning of life.
Yes, that's a good point. It is more than survival.
Yeah, because it's the material world that just is about survival. I mean, this is just my theory, but if we go a little bit beyond survival and tap into what you're talking about, we realize why we came in the first place.
Why we came in the first place, that we are singers of life. Every one of us is a singer of life. Whatever you were told about your voice, whether somebody said you couldn't sing, whatever you were told, the truth is that you and me and everyone has a voice that can remember how to tune in to these things so that these doorways of consciousness can open up and we can tune in and receive messages that are intrinsic for our survival as a species and beyond. We're at this turning point.
We are.
Now.
I think what you're saying is so important because we have to go beyond survival if we're to survive, actually. To realize our true nature, which is why we incarnated in the first place. And, you know, I never thought about sound being that important in that realm. And you're saying if I can find my own voice and make a sacred sound, let's make a sacred sound for the audience.
Well, let's go back to awe.
Okay.
Because awe is the sound of the heart.
Okay.
And the sound of awe resonates the heart.
How did you get it's the sound of the heart? How do you know that?
Well, actually, in all of the research that I've done and all of the other people who've been doing research on sound, they might say something different with the first chakra or the second chakra, but universally, awe is the sound that relates to the heart. When we're in awe, when we're in sympathy, awe. When we're in pain sometimes, all of those sounds
Those are so
vibrate.
innate to
They are innate.
To our essence as human beings.
Exactly.
All right, we'll make a quick
Okay, let's do 3 of them, all right? Okay, so here we go. I'm just feeling what I'm feeling.
That is a beautiful sound.
All I'm doing is just, Following my voice.
Well, I
It's
can
called
see-
toning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You have a website for this
I
beautiful
do.
book?
It's www.songkeeper.net.
And I've been talking to Susan Hale, and thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I'm Alan Steinfeld for New Realities. Email me at newrealities@earthlink.net or check my website, newrealities.com. Thank you for watching.